I don't know if you're ready. If you're ready, not ready. Yeah? Okay. So we are on page Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. The line begins soleek b'riusa l'mi b'yolma. We started talking about what is the principle of kesser. And we started explaining that kesser in chassidus terms is the union of ratzon. Ratzon is the starting point, is the initiator of everything. And this is what kesser is. And we explained, and I'd like that we should understand, the reason this initiator is called kesser is because this initiator is what gives significance to everything that follows. Things that happened inadvertently, without planning, have no significance. And it is this which initiates it that identifies, oh, this is of tremendous significance. And it initiates it from the initial state rather than as a reaction. Like I said, if a person is hungry and he eats, that does not give eating a status of a kesser, of a ratzon. Because the eating there is not because of the significance of eating, it is just to assuage a hunger. Doesn't have a kesser. The kesser for every madrega is in a status, is in a madrega. Clearly, it is higher than that which emanates from it. It's not just higher; it's in a different category. Which is why it gives it a sense of reality. And I was thinking of a very clear way of demonstrating, of expressing this principle. In an army, there are all kinds of levels, all kinds of officers. From the very top, the 5-star general, to the very bottom, to the very end. Of course, there is the foot soldier, and then there is a sergeant. There is a group leader, one in charge of 5 people. He's also a leader. Each one of these leaders has a status of leadership. And if a soldier disobeys his group leader, he is liable to be sued for whatever it's called, for insubordinate court martial, for the smallest thing. Yeah. And where do they get this kind of a status or power? Of this kind of, this is a nothing. A group leader, because there is a leader on the very top. That very top provides for the status of all levels and all leadership. Well, how is that? He's a soldier and he's a soldier. He's a higher soldier. How is it provided for that there is such such elite status for all leadership? And the answer is, here's a very important point. The 5-star general he owns the army. He knows exactly, he leads the army in every aspect. One thing he doesn't do. The 5-star general cannot declare war. He begins at the point where there is already a declaration of war. In other words, he is part of the process. That which declares war is outside of the process, is prior to the whole process. This is the essential reality. Who declares war? The civil leader, the president, the melech. They're not even involved in that. This is what, beyond the process, the structure, the army structure. This, the president, so to speak, this is the reality behind this entire structure. And this is what gives the army structure such enormous status that it goes from top to bottom, and each one has a quality of this malchus. The difference between these two elements, the melech, or the one who has the right, in whose name the war is conducted, and all the conduct of war, including the highest, the 5-star, is soleek be'erech. And we have in our little history a demonstration of this, which I remember when it was happening. It boggles the mind. It's a very useful piece of history. There was a Korean War. I mean, everybody knows that. I don't know if you remember. Probably don't. But there was a Korean War right after the Second World War. It was declared like in the early 50s. It was a very horrific thing. Korean War. And the president of the United States in those days was President Truman. Truman was not of great stature as a leader. He was elected president because he was vice president before that. He's not a president like Roosevelt, who was president for four sessions. He's the president. And he's the one who declared war. And there was a real war. And the 5-star general who led this war was MacArthur, General MacArthur. Again, I don't know if you're familiar. General MacArthur, when you mention General MacArthur, among the people who know in the Second World War, it immediately makes you tremble, because he and Eisenhower were the top men of the entire Second World War. MacArthur was leading the war down south in Asia, over there in Korea. And then China. In those days, China was not much of a military power, but by sheer numbers, they were able to create havoc. China started to mingle in the war and to help out the South Korean. The Korean was actually a war between the South and the North. And China, and this was a big problem. So MacArthur said, I'm going to attack China. And he had the power to attack China. I mean, even though America, there's no comparison in those days. And Truman said, no, you're not attacking China. And MacArthur said, I am attacking China. The comparison between the status of these two men is lopsided. Truman was a little, before he was president, he was a congressman. Carter was a man of renown. Was, so to speak, an epic war. Guess what? Truman called him back and decommissioned him. Just like that. I remember when this happened, and people, wow, that's quite a daring. Okay? Anyway, the point is, these are two different levels totally. MacArthur can be a tremendous master at war, but he has no status, no standing whatsoever, except for that which the civil government gives him. This is the kesser. If he conducts war, it is because the civil government declared the war, gave him the right to do it. This is a good illustration of the principle of kesser, that the kesser is a madriga above, beyond the actual process. Once the army is declared, then there will be 5-star general, 4-star general, 3-star general, 1-star general, then it could be other commissioned officers and so forth. All the way down to the captain and the sergeant and so forth, and the group leader. And they all have a status of an element of kesser. So this is the significance of the kesser. The kesser, this is the ratzon. This is that which enables everything. The ratzon for Seder Hishtalshelus is in Odom Kadmon, is in Ak. Which means it's way beyond, before the Seder Hishtalshelus. It's not part of the process of the world. And this is what gives the process of the world standing and significance. As we discussed this morning, but this illustration, this mashal, occurred to me later, which I think is very apropos and very demonstrative of the principle. This is the principle of ratzon. All right, so let's continue inside. As I said, we'll start 3 lines from the bottom. Soleek the mibre alma. This is what the Zohar says. When it entered his will, the mibre alma, to create the world. The haino bechinas ratzon. This refers to the ratzon of machshava hagduma de'ak. The machshava, the pristine thought of ak. Again, this morning I reminded you, because the principle of machshava hagduma we discussed at great length in the previous Hamshik that we learned. This is what provides for the ratzon, for the whole Seder Hishtalshelus. The ratzon, this is what gives the Seder Hishtalshelus a standing, a significance. And as a result of this, at every interval, at every stage, and every level, going from one world to the next, each one has a ratzon, a kesser. That's what's called a kesser. Kesser means something which is above the entire structure. Like in the terms of a kesser, we discussed it the other day. We talked about the levushim, the garments. There are many different garments. Garments in general are much more than just protecting a person against the cold or even exposure. It has there's an element of honor in garments and so forth. And the pinnacle of that is in the kesser, the crown. The crown goes above the head, above the garments of the head. And one thing that's so obvious, clear in the crown is not even a garment. It doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever. It's not even a garment. It's not even an ornament. It's what's called a symbol. So it's a different category completely. And that is what brings out and creates the whole status. Okay. Sufficient enough with that. So this, the ratzon elements, is from Achshava Hagduma, which is the kesser for the entire Seder Hishtalshus. The end of the third line from the bottom. Will be close yoiser, and even at a higher and a greater state of inclusion. Who bechinas horotzin haposhut shebein sof shelifnei hatzimtzum, which is actually the rotzin poshut in Ayin Sof that precedes its tzimtzum, because Ak is, in a certain sense, Ak it said is rooted in that which is before the tzimtzum. There is the Ayin before the tzimtzum, but nevertheless, this is already the madrega itself is after the tzimtzum, whereas Ayin Sof haposhut, rotzin haposhut bein Sof is lifnei hatzimtzum. That is in Ayin Sof itself. That is the original, the initial ratzon, the initial kesser for the entire Seder Shas. As it says in the Itzchayim, she'ol b'rtzonei haposhut lahatzi v'livroi. That's the expression in Itzchayim. As it entered in his ratzon poshut, lahatzi v'livroi, to emanate and to create. Which means that Chaim says clearly that the initial ratzon is in ratzon haposhut. Ratzon haposhut means before the tzimtzum. The kol zehu b'bchinas kesser b'chol madrega madrega. All of these aspects is the kesser for every madrega. There's a kesser, as we said, there's a kesser de bria, kesser de atzilus, and then a kesser that is represented by Ak and so forth. Now, this rotzin and this kesser, shekoil el be'atzmoi, that incorporates and includes within himself Kol ma she'ola b'bchinas rotzon zeh. Everything that was conceptualized in this ratzon. Now with this ratzon is not merely a license, so to speak, a permission for that which follows, but this is what initiates it. This is what initially conceptualizes. This is what creates the whole idea. This is the ratzon. In this initial ratzon is contained everything that is revealed afterwards. וכשנזהב מה שנעלם בכל הבהורוצים, then subsequently, when ultimately that which is contained and concealed within this ratzon comes to being, nizhava, comes to actual presence, Uba b'bchinas gilui. And then when it is nishava, when it comes into being Ba b'bchinas gilui, it comes to a state of gilui, to a state of revelation, identifiable presence. Harei hu b'bchinas seviv u'makif. Then the ratzon does not let it, the ratzon then stands in connection, in relationship to all that comes from it, b'bchinas seviv u'makif, in a surrounding manner. L'chol mashin is have, to all that came to be. In other words, this kesser, this ratzon, is what initiated it. And this initiation means because within this ratzon, in a very concealed, in a very subtle manner, all this was actually conceptualized, was contained. And then when it came into being, then this ratzon remains containing it. It means giving it a makif status. Okmoi kesser da'atzilus, as an example, talk about kesser da'atzilus, the kesser of atzilus. Koilel includes kol ho'es esfiras da'atzilus. The kesser da'atzilus includes all the 10 spheres of atzilus. Initially, the kesser da'atzilus, this is when all the 10 spheres of atzilus were rooted. This is where they were conceptualized in a very subtle way, contained within the kesser. And then when the atzilus is actually brought forth, is emanates, so then this kesser, then the kesser surrounds the atzilus. And he gives the atzilus its presence, even as a presence, as a revealed world. So what this means is like this. You with me, right?
I missed the piece right before Atzilus. The connection point from you when you're talking about the ratzon apashut. From this, which everything is included in it,
yeah,
to the bridge to Atzilus. I understand it's a continuation of thought, but I missed this one piece in between.
Well, this ratzon, this ratzon, everything with this ratzon, within this ratzon is contained, is concealed. It's contained within the ratzon. And then when it emanates, when it becomes into a revealed state, that becomes a world. And this ratzon continues to surround it and to give it its status. You have to give us a very simple illustration, but then after the simplicity, we have to focus in with seichel a little bit and to a more realistic, to a more deeper state. So we used the analogy of a journey. A journey starts off with a ratzon. The ratzon, as we described, the ratzon essentially says, I want to go from here to here. And this ratzon, I want to go from here to here, is contained not only I want to move away from here and get here, but I want to travel and cover this entire ground. this distance that's covered in every different station, every different turn in this distance is part of this ratzon. As you're traveling, you're making all kinds of twists and turns. For example, you follow the route, the road. You follow the road, so you would think that all these turns have nothing to do with the initial ratzon. Just the road is what leads you on. This that the road is what leads you on. This is what's called seder histalshu. This is the presence, the metzius as it happens. Like in seichel, for example, seichel has a logical process. The logical seichel is a seichel level process. So you would think the seichel is what leads you on in this path. So we're saying in the entire process of seichel, there is a ratzon that gives it significance. The ratzon encompasses the entire seichelic process. Like we said this morning or yesterday, I don't remember exactly, that no matter what you understand with your seichel, you can know the logic. But when it becomes seichel when you want to understand it, when it has a ratzon element in it.
Are we still talking about journeying for one?
I gave the example of journeying.
Sorry.
I'm going back and forth between. I hope you can turn around.
Sorry.
Chassidus explained that seichel, that a person is mizboinen in a certain seichel, it brings out all kinds of different midos. It says in mizboinen in things, in a concept, in principles, that me'oiras or ahava, that will arouse ahava, a person will get ahava. Then mizboinen yon that me'oiras yira, then yira will come. Now this hisboinenus, it says, contemplating the greatness of the Creator. To contemplate the greatness of the Creator. From a worldly perspective, you can contemplate it, and like all the great scientists, they know the hugeness of the universe. It doesn't bring him into ahava v'yira. On the contrary, we are further and further from Elokus. The more they know, the less they're involved in the Elokus element. And the reason is because their whole process does not have the ratzon behind it. What does that mean, if I put it in simple terms? They were studying the physical universe, not the godly creation. The more they study the physical universe, it is for the purpose of figuring out, how did I create this world? You know, how do I explain how the world developed? It's a completely different pursuit. The ratzon, if they had the ratzon put into it, then it would be a completely different result. So as you go through the entire logic, so to speak, the ratzon is what provides for it the real chayes, the real significance. Even though it goes into Seder Ishtalshus, a 10 spheres, Chochma, Bina, Das, and so forth, it is not devoid of the ratzon. And this is how it reveals more and more it reveals the ratzon, the kesser element, rather than becoming a separate mitzvah. So, the kesser is what initiates. This is the ratzon, that initiates the whole Seder Ishtalshus, and then subsequently, when the Seder Ishtalshus comes forth and is revealed, the ratzon is what surrounds it and gives it context and gives it real chayes. Ukiyodua, as is known, the gulei arich, what's called the gulei arich. Igul means the surrounding aspect, the circle aspect of arich. Arich, this is my we mentioned before, the law madrega of kesser. Soibevim, they surround ad bechinas malchut atzilus. They, the gulei arich, are present. And this is what gives context to the entire Seder Ishtalshus of Atzilus, all the way down Malchus Atzilus to the rest of the spheres of Atzilus. V'chein bechinas Odom Kadmin, Ak. Similarly, the bechina of Ak, Hu bechinas oil kloli. That too, in a similar fashion as we say, Ak, this is the initiator of the entire Seder Ishtalshus. Bechinas oil kloli. This is what one would describe as oil kloli. An oil, an all-encompassing oil, should koil el ha-koil, koidem shinizhab, that incorporates everything before it came into being. This is the way it was initially perceived. Then after that the worlds came into being, so this Ak doesn't, then the worlds are not going on their own journey, so to speak, and say the Ishtalshus. The Ak is what that surrounds the entire all the worlds that came forth from it. And in Kabbalah terms, it's called the Gulei Ak Magim Matachis Hoasiyah. The Gulim of Ak and Makifim of Ak reach all the way to the bottom of Asiyah. This is also true regarding the ratzon haposhut. The ratzon, the initial ratzon haposhut, that's before the tzilus, tzimtzum, gam kein, shegam kein koil, that also, koil tchilo hakel, which initially it contains everything. The achel kach, and afterwards, when they say when the worlds come in, after the tzimtzum, when the worlds come into being, that then continues to encompass and surround everything that came forth. Okay, here we have some Kabbalah terms, so we'll just go through this for a moment. This is what's known ho'igul hagodol, the great circle. That is before the kav. that surrounds and includes kol ha'hishtalshelus shemehakaf, the entire hishtalshelus that comes from the kaf. V'chol ha'yigudim, and all the circles, all the makifim, shor shon hu mehayigul hagodol kneda, are rooted in this eagle hagodol, in this great circle that surrounds the entire Seder Hishtalshelus.
That's a higher level than the eagle of the Ak,
Yes,
the bigger.
but this is before the tzimtzum.
Mm-hmm.
And the significance of this is phenomenal, is enormous. The important thing is that at whatever madreya, whatever level one identifies, whatever level anything is, there is the element over there in it of the oil shelifnei atzimtzum. That is what gives it its real presence. Again, just to give us a little bit of a handle of the significance of this statement. A person has many koyches, starting from Chochmah, Bina, V'das, and Midos, all the way to Machshava, Dibur, Ma'aseh, and there is enormous gap over there. Ma'aseh is a Shalem Erech, cannot be compared to Chochmah. Chochmah, you'd say, oh, that's exclusively a human phenomenon. But Ma'aseh is just a physical act. But then, if we reflect on the level of Ma'aseh, when a person, on the lowest level of Ma'aseh, takes a hammer and bangs in a nail. So this bangs in a nail, he's not even banging, the hammer is banging the nail. He couldn't bang in a nail with his hands. He uses a tool to bang in a nail. And all it is that he provides is the swing of the hand that the hammer should hit the nail on the head straight, and it should bang in the nail. So you would think the whole thing has nothing to do with the essence of the person. This is a hand that was trained to hit the nail properly. So we say that's not at all the case. And this banging of the nail has in it a human spirit, and it has in it, so to speak, the ratzon that initiated this whole process, this whole ability to bang in a nail. And this is what gives chayus to the swing of the hammer to hit a nail. Even though the swing of the hammer is done with the physical force of the hand. In other words, there's a full human spirit coming along at every level of human activity. In the seichel, I pointed out, the seichel you don't understand unless the ratzon is involved, and in action you can't do the action unless the ratzon is involved.
You already talked about how understanding comes through connecting with the ratzon?
This morning I did.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I explained that, showed that you were not there this morning.
I was there.
Oh, you were there, so you should remember.
Okay.
That real understanding is due to the fact that I want to understand. No matter how logical a thing is, that doesn't bring you to understand it. It makes you to know the logic. Understanding is the ratzon behind the understanding. This is why we say that there's a necessity of focusing it. Sometimes the seichel is very simple. Oh, I can repeat exactly what you said. You can repeat it, and you don't know, and you don't even know the beginning of what it's about. Like we always say, nowadays we have machine for everything. The computer can do mathematical calculations infinitely faster than a human being can do, and with greater accuracy. Is there a comparison between a human calculation of 2 times 2 equals to 4 and the computer's calculation of higher mathematics? There's no comparison. Because by the computer there is no significance of that knowledge. In human being there is significance. It's completely different sense of knowledge. Like we said, and this is to illustrate the point, that 1 and 1, which is a simple arithmetic statement, 1 and 1, on the seichel level, on the simple arithmetic level, it's 2 ones. 1 and 1 is 2 ones. That it is 2, a unit of 2, this is a ratzon element. This is where the seichel draws from the ratzon. Different kind of reality. That is the real seichel. Okay.
1 and 1 would be just 2 ones would be just devoid of any ability to put things together, like
Right, devoid of seichel.
like a broader perspective. Like you're thinking like a computer.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah.
2 ones. It's not seichel. Seichel means you understand what you're saying, not just you know the result of things. 2 ones. Even at that level, you can readily see the difference.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes, 1 second. Yes.
So somewhere maybe I missed a turn. What is the relationship of this to this discussion of the gulim?
No, that's to point out the eagle, the ratzon, follows along with all the koiches, with the seichel and midas and so forth. And if the ratzon should let it go and it will remain just plain seichel midas, and then it loses completely its significance.
Your expression just now was the eagle of ratzon.
Right. The Rabbi is pointing out the various igulim in terms of Seder Hishtalshelus, the various madregas, the Oish Lifnei HaTzimtzum, and then the Ak and so forth. These are the various igulim. But I just wanted that we should understand the significance of all that there is the igulim that contain the Seder Hishtalshelus. The thing he has said that is like in a human being, that all his activities, all his koiches, even though they are simple koiches. Like I give an example, the simplest of all koiches, to bang in a nail with a hammer. There's a human element in this. There's a nefesh element. It's a completely different thing. And it definitely shows up in the final product. But if you talk in terms, let's say, an artist drawing a line, it's a pencil that draws a line. It's a completely different line. The artist draws a line, it's a completely different, it's not a line. It represents a certain feel and a certain highs. Okay.
Is there a way to express the difference between the Ara Pashut versus Ak? Is that like Truman versus McCarthy?
No. All the kesserim are like Truman. McCarthy is not McCarthy, not McCarthy. McCarthy. I have to correct it. Come on.
Okay.
He is not. He's not at that level at all. He is part of the content. He's part of the word process. He's not part of the initiation. No matter how great it is, he cannot declare war. He said, for the purpose of strategy, we have to go this way. Right? To win the war, we have to go this way. And the president said, no, you don't go there. So it's not part of the initial plan, and we don't go.
He is above the other officers in the army.
Yes, but that's it. Within the context of officers of army.
Yeah.
Not in context of overall decision making. Outside of the of military decisions. Yes, no.
The igulim is this is present throughout the igulim of ratzon, and then you mentioned that also the initial or is present throughout this or pashut as well. Is one how do those two go together? Is it one different from the other? One is a different expression?
This is what we went through pointing out. There is the general of the army, then there is a little officer, a group leader of 4 or 5 men. You should know, right? The soleek b'yerech. All of them, including the general of the army, get their status from the president. They have the right to go and shoot and go to war only because the president declared war.
This is the context. This is the ratzon in
the entire process.
And what is the or itself that is present? It's almost like the last hemshech. What is that?
The or itself is that which is contained within the civil government decision. Why we go to war.
And that gets expressed in every little
level.
Hmm.
They all go to war because of this principle that sent them to war.
not to belabor the point, but is that or and the igulim, is this one and the same, or is two different?
This or apostle, this is that which provides for all the various igulim. Like you said,
Okay.
this is what provides for the highest general and for the simple foot soldier. Like we said many times, a soldier on the front lines who is facing an open turret directed at him, he has the strength, the moral strength, the emotional strength, the mental presence to counter it. This is superhuman. Because he is superhuman. It's a different kind of spirit at that time.
Just to finish it off,
I'm sorry?
the or and the ratzon are the same thing, are synonymous in this case. Talking about igulim are from ratzon. These are the ratzon, the kesser, right? And then in couple places it says or, like
The ratzon provide. This is the similar Ayin. The reason it goes to oil because we're talking about oil lifnei hatzimtzum. Can't call it ratzon. This is oil. A soil lifnei hatzimtzum, not a portion. It's called oil.
But by a kav is also called or.
What?
Geen begin as ak, who begin as or clothing. It's also called or.
Oil clothing for the entire cow.
It's chassidus.
Have we discussed much about the fact that it's makiv or soleek? It seems that's not emphasis of our conversation so far.
Yes, it is. He said initially it was contained within that ratzon, and then when it emanates out and becomes a real present in the world, then the ratzon surrounds it, contains it. Like I said, when a carpenter bangs in a nail, there is a ratzon that surrounds that activity, even though it's a very simple activity.
Sorry to mix other my wine, but it's not mislabish in the keli. It's like what we were just learning about.
Well, it is mislabish.
But hislabshus is like more pneumius than makiv, right?
It is mislabish in a makif manner. Because this is what provides for it. It gives it the highest on a makif level.
Waking up in the morning is very pronounced.
It's very what?
Pronounced.
You mean it's clear?
It's very clear that you get up at the end.
All right.
You said, I'm getting up, but you can't.
Okay, so we're missing this morning.
Huh?
Okay. So we're slowly getting a taste of what's coming.
So,
Ayin.